September Message Center announcements. So some really good information on this one again. Topics kind of going from, of course, Teams. Seems always there's a topic in Teams. There's a lot of topics on Viva because there's a lot of changes happening on that as well. And a couple other ones that I think it's really good to know. As always with these Message Center announcements, I'm not able to get to all of them, so make sure that you take a look at them and see if it's relevant to you. And again, as a reminder, especially in the Message Center, as you're looking at it, there is a column that does say if it's scheduled for your tenant or if it's rolling out or completed. So make sure you notice that as you're going through all these Message Center announcements. All right, so let's get started. So the first one is actually going to be on a SharePoint side of things. So as you may know, especially us SharePoint people, many years, right? We've had the ability to be able to do some different themes associated to Teams. And, or I should say, to a team site, right, to your site. The themes are actually getting expanded. So the default ones out there, you're going to actually get able to do more with it out of the box. You don't have to go and make a custom selection. You can just go in there and choose from what they have. So this is happening mid-September to late September for targeted, and standard then late September to mid-October. Make sure you let your end users know that this change is happening because they may get freaked out with a couple new options. On the color side of things, we're additionally getting this in OneDrive and SharePoint. So the ability to be able to have color folders so that you can set up if you want to be able to organize and color coordinate. Great. I know some people that are going to love this one. This is happening late August, so it's already starting to move for some tenants going into early October. And this is going to be for both SharePoint folders as well as OneDrive folders. And in the OneDrive side, it's going to be those folders that you see in the My Files section. All right, and I saw this one, I'm like, whoa, okay, this is a big one from the Excel side of things, especially if you know people who know Python formulas specifically, and can quickly get those up and running. So already rolling out in public preview. It's not available, general availability yet. But late August is already starting into early September, so it may be already available for your organizations to be able to make this something that you guys can test and work with. So being able to add a Python formula right into the formula bar so that you can just, and by the way, you don't have to do any installation to be able to get it done. It's just going to work right out of the box. All right. These are going to run in a secure container in the Microsoft Cloud behind the scenes. So if it's going to do some, anything malicious, then that's going to prevent that from happening. Again, it's in public preview. Read the Message Center post specifically around how to be able to get into that Microsoft 365 Insiders beta channel for Windows to be able to have that available for some of your internal people. All right, so getting into some of the Viva pieces. I have a couple of them here. I understand not everybody is using it, but it might be interesting for you to take a look and see what's going on. So Microsoft Viva, there's these topics area, but basically what's going to happen is this change starting here in a preview and then rolling out here in September, and then standards early September to mid-September. It's going to actually show you when some topic is verified. And this is important, especially when you want to make sure that the information that's getting out there and people are using is verified and accurate, right? So adding this capability and actually showing that an editor can mark published topics as verified in Viva topic, and I should say in Viva. You'll get a badge, you'll see that, you'll actually see an indication for review of accuracy. You even have this ability for assigned editors to be able to modify and manage that. The person who is kind of that person who marks it as a verified ends up being an editor for that particular topic, which is good. We want that because they're going to be hopefully that subject matter expert for that. Okay, so make sure you guys understand that this change is happening and notify your end users. Topics, Viva topics specifically, the home page is getting a revamp and specifically wrapped around two pieces. There was an issue wrapped around it where somebody may have had this topic page checked out and was working on things, and it literally just got locked because they didn't check it back in. They didn't do anything with it. So there's improvement on that. And then the idea of what's basically it's a session abandonment. So there's going to be more ability to be able to say, hey, for instance, if it is a checked out, it's actually going to do some periodic autosaves. And it's going to notify users. There's going to be a yellow banner on top that actually says, hey, by the way, you're seeing the latest and greatest. This is being worked on or updated. Okay, so you're going to see those things. And this is going to be indicated to the users. That's happening here now into late September. You should see those changes happening. All right, so on the Viva Engage side of things, formerly known as Yammer, now Engage, we have a new campaign feature that's coming out. And specifically, what's going to be added to the campaign or part of the campaign feature is sashes. So a campaign sash, and that can be highlighted in a profile, or a campaign organizer. Okay, so those are the two pieces that are going to be added within this particular feature that's going to relate, going to be coming out here. And notice the dates. The sash is already starting to happen and should be finishing here shortly. And the co-organizer is going to be happening here mid-September to late September. To, again, make sure that you're letting people know about these changes, especially if those who are actually creating campaigns within Engage. And then the Insights piece. Insights is going to get a homepage revamp from the organizational leader side of things. So that leader, when they're taking a look at their employees, again, it's aggregated information. It's not individual information, right? But you're going to get a little bit of revamp, right? So you're going to be able to apply, any organizational leaders, number one, who has a group manager or has a role called inside business leader. You're going to see more specific metrics. That's going to be more helpful for you to be able to take some actions on it, as well as be able to read articles specifically on the information. You can also filter the homepage based off of teams that you may manage, periods, time periods, even benchmarks that you have inside the system. So make sure you're letting those leaders know that this change is happening and that they can access that data. All right, we do have a couple, and this was interesting because this is kind of happening all together. There are two different ones here that I just lump together because they're very connected. It's really the idea of being able to have a meeting that is across cloud, and they're using the term authenticated meeting. That means you are an authenticated person. So if, for instance, I'm working with somebody on the outside, and we have a cross cloud connection between our two tenants, that technically means that with this solution coming up, it sees us as being in the same tenant. And when you're in a Teams meeting, a lot of times you'll have that example, you'll have that scenario. If you don't mess with the meeting options, that people, you have to actually let them into the meeting, as an example, right? So there's things that you lose when you don't have that they're in the same tenant side of things. This will actually make it a lot easier for those types of collaborations, especially in the meetings. But it's also not just meetings, it's also chat channels and documents that you're sharing as well. Okay, so the two MCs, as you notice here, I have them listed here. There's two different ones. One really is focusing on meetings, and the other one is focusing on chat channel and documents. It's going to need to have Azure B2B set up, as well as also needs to have the cross-tenant access settings also set up. As an example, this is something that in Azure you're able to then configure and set up for that other tenant so that you can then have that cross-cloud authentication scenario. Okay, and that's happening here late September for both of them. Along with that, but unnecessarily unrelated, because it's coming out as a separate scenario, is if you do have if you do have multiple tenants that you have connected to, right, and you're working with, you are going to be able to, in Outlook, right, be able to go and say, hey, I'm going to be able to schedule a meeting from this tenant, right? It's part of the Outlook Teams add-in for your meetings. And then you'd be able to switch between those tenants so that you can then send it from that particular tenant. We do have some organizations where they may have multiple tenants. This allows them to be able to then, say from Outlook, be able to send those meeting invites without having to jump into maybe a web version of Outlook and send it from that other tenant. The one thing that they did say in this message center post is, by the way, if you were to copy a blob, a meeting blob from one tenant to another, it's not going to work. So you need to make sure that you're creating it specifically within that tenant. If this is the case, make sure you let your users know so they can update their training. All right, we do have a change, actually an addition happening with the iOS mobile devices. Specifically wrapped around shared line experience with Teams. And what that basically means is that shared line means delegates. So if you have boss admin or delegates set up in your Teams calling, so it could be an executive and executive admin that are need to have that set up, right? This is affecting that. Actually, what it's doing is making available in Teams iOS mobile device, so that you can see who those shared line people are. This is happening already, should be done here pretty soon, here early September. If you do have users that are using that boss admin or delegate scenario, make sure they know that this is an option. They're going to be able to see that in their iOS device when that's released. Another option or another piece to the iOS side of things is if you do not want to have your call logs. So your Teams call logs show up in your native iOS recents. Okay, so you do have or will have, starting here in September and going through early October, the ability to uncheck that box to show Teams calls in a call log. And that is on your native device, right? Specifically for iOS. Yeah, I know some people are like, I really don't want to see that because that's my work. I don't want to see that on my personal device if that's okay. So a lot of times that's a big deal. All right, so a few quick mentions. I did want to call out a couple specifically. One, the preview, if you guys know that we're dealing with this whole new Microsoft Teams app. We've been focusing on Windows for a long time. Now, guess what? It's coming out in preview here early September for Mac. Okay, so you can actually preview it on a Mac computer. A couple other ones. One that I thought was interesting is that we have this coming out here for OneDrive and SharePoint, where you now can utilize Azure Active Directory security groups or Microsoft 365 groups to be able to restrict or limit permissions, right? So you can throw those groups in now to be able to access that there. All right. Web links. I don't know if you guys know about this, but anytime a lot of times when I'm clicking on links in Outlook now, things are opening up in Edge all the time, right? So that same thing is happening now with Microsoft Teams Chat. So if you have a link that's in Teams Chat, you click on it, it's going to open it up in Edge, if you have that set up as your default, and you're going to get that Edge side panel with that Teams Chat sitting in there. Okay, so you'll see both of those. It's late September. And also Teams Premium. If you're familiar, we've talked about Teams Premium in the past. We've not had a trial for that quite yet. And so now there is ability to be able to do Teams Premium trial starting here in late September. All right, some updated things I want to make sure you guys are very familiar. There is a change with loop components URL that loop.microsoft.com is going to be the default. That's happening. That got moved. The Teams stream preview and playback in chat, that literally you're going to be able to see a stream video playing right there without having to jump into another web browser or anything. That got pulled back as well. It was supposed to be in August, but now it's going to be late September or October when it gets finished. A couple other ones specifically around the graph APIs. Make sure if you have some developers that are doing that, that's getting delayed as well. The other one that I was kind of surprised about it is being able to do this real-time telemetry as far as meeting quality. The real time, I have a lot of customers that have been looking for this for quite a while. This got pushed back a little bit, so it's just going to be mid-September. But I will tell you, I've seen it get pushed back a couple times. So I'm hoping they're going to stick to this one as far as the end release on that. The other one I thought was interesting too is this one: disallow reactions in specific emails, where you, as a originator of that email, you would be able to say, I don't want to have reactions on this email thread, right? So that is coming out here mid-September to late September. It got pushed back as well. And then the other one, I want to make sure if you have any Teams Android devices, that would be Teams Phone. If you guys have any Teams meeting rooms, there is this report an issue feature. And what's happening is that behind the scenes, they're making a major update to how that works. That is going to make it basically temporarily, it's going to be disabled. And they're saying now here in mid-September when that's going to happen. All right, and then some admin actions I want to make sure you guys are seeing. A couple new ones. Specifically, there was a retiring import-transport rule collection. Make sure you take a notice of that one. The other one is, what was the other one I was thinking I needed to talk about? Nope, that was the major one that I wanted to make sure we hit. All right, well, that's it. I did notice, Jason, your suggestion. And the badge in the case of the improvement requires premium. Oh yeah, no, that's a good idea. I try as much as possible. If I do see if it says it needs premium, I try to put in there, but I will, yeah, I'll look at that. I like the badge idea. Thank you, Jason.
Cool. Right. Thank you so much, Donald. Hopefully